Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our next installment of our emergency management webinar series. Today we have an introduction to Drone2Map for emergency management. I'm very excited that we've got Lori Jordan with us today, and we're spending a few minutes talking to us about this new and exciting product from Esri. And also we've got John Petter with us, who has some recent experience in using Drone2Map for some recent projects and can share with you an overview of the workflow of Drone2Map and give you some senses of how to use this to meet some of your information needs. So today, this is the main things that we're going to talk about. You know, a really quick level set on the purpose of this webinar series. We'll be spending the most of our time talking about Drone2Map, both in an overview format, and John will spend a good amount of time giving some live demonstrations of the full Drone2Map workflow, from how to fly imagery, how to collect it, and then how to process it, and the different information products that can be generated. As normal, we'll give a quick update on not only ArcGIS for emergency management, but also our disaster response program and some of the recent activities and disasters and information products that have been generated there by the community, and finally finish up with some next steps. We'll be saving plenty of time for questions at the end, so feel free to type away your questions in the question window that you have access to, and I'll try and answer as many of those as possible during the course of the broadcast, as well as spend some time talking about common questions at the end of today's webinar. So the purpose of this webinar series is to provide regular updates to the community, the emergency management community, on ArcGIS technology and how GIS technology can be used. And that's why we're really excited about the new technology that some of you may have heard about at our recent user conference, Drone2Map. So this is a normal cadence of webcast, and we thank you that have joining us again, and welcome those that are new to our webcast today. And these are normally the first Thursday of each month. Next month we'll be talking about getting started with the WebEOC ArcGIS extension. These topics can vary, and we welcome input and from the user community, and try and match some of the suggestions that folks have to some of the topics that we cover, and certainly a lot of interest in this new Drone2Map technology, and that will be the main thing that we'll focus on today. So there's a lot of common information needs in emergency management, a lot of common information needs that we see that Drone2Map can help address, whether that's identify the impacted area, like the fire scar that you see there, and really kind of getting to that impact polygon, or doing damage assessment quickly and after an event, or doing debris estimates or volumetric calculations and looking at the digital surface model and seeing what the differences might be after a landslide or beach erosion, or following the path of the storm and identifying where that's impacted the landscape, or even doing more advanced modeling and helping to predict the impact of floods, as you see here, or other events, or inspecting critical infrastructure and where bridges may be out or other infrastructure may be damaged, and finally helping to detect change. How is images change, and what does the difference look like, and where's the area really been impacted. So all of these information needs that we're kind of listing here, we see great potential in the use of Drone2Map to help support a lot of these common information needs in new ways, and are excited to talk to you about some of the new capabilities that have come online recently. And so next I want to turn it over here to one of our main speakers, Lori Jordan, the Director of Imagery and Remote Sensing here at Esri, to talk to us this morning about this new Drone2Map for ArcGIS technology. So take it away, Lori.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jeff. And good morning, everyone. And thank you very much for joining us. I'm Lori Jordan, Director of Imagery and Remote Sensing here at Esri. And this morning, I'd like to take about 10 minutes and share with you a technology update on one of the most interesting and I think strategically significant areas of development within Esri having to do with drones. But before we begin, I'd like to do a quick shout out and big thank you to Russ Johnson and his entire public safety team for hosting this webinar series. Is very helpful to us in two important ways. One, it lets us let you see what we're up to, where we are with our development activities, but more importantly, it allows us to get your feedback and input into the design, development, and functionality of these products. There's continuing innovation going on here, as you would expect, and it's very important to us that we're building the tools that you need that will help you be more productive and more successful. In fact, many of you on the line participated in our drone beta program, which interestingly had over 600 organizations who were actively engaged. And out of that came a very large list of significantly important and good ideas, recommendations, and many of those ideas actually found their way into the first version of Drone2Map, including one that you suggested, my personal favorite, which is the addition of ground control points to gain a much higher level of precision in the app. So we're grateful for your participation and involvement. So with that, what I'd like to do is jump right into this, and if I can, and here we go. Okay, so here we go. So last month, as many of you know, at our International User Conference in San Diego, we released version 1.0 of a brand new app whose official name is Drone2Map for ArcGIS. And the design philosophy behind this app really puts major emphasis on simplicity, because the target audience that we see for this is really GIS users and other professionals involved with imagery and mapping who need the latest up-to-date picture of conditions on the ground, but at the same time are not domain experts or experts in image processing, remote sensing, or photogrammetry. They don't want to be and shouldn't have to be. So we're totally on board with that. So the simple concept of operation here, shown on this slide, or CONOPS as we like to say, is a basic three-step process. Number one, fly the drone. Two, run the app. And three, get a map. And the implementation of this is equally simple and straightforward. It's a Windows-based app that runs on a PC or a Surface tablet. And interestingly, and a lot of people don't understand this, it's important to know that this does not require ArcGIS Desktop. In other words, this is not a plug-in. This is actually a standalone, clean and simple app. And one of the very nice things about it is that it publishes the information products, the output products, directly to your ArcGIS online organizational account. Quick and simple. And the intuitive workflow that accompanies it makes it very easy to actually run the software. So yesterday, my good friend and colleague John Petter stopped by my office and he said, hey, wouldn't it be interesting during the webcast if we actually started a run and let the audience see how quickly it actually operates, and we can come back to it. Oh, that's a great idea. So at this moment, I'd like to temporarily turn things over to John and have him fire off a run for us. So John, over to you.
Okay, thanks, Laurie. So what you're seeing on the screen here is a collection of some images that I flew this weekend. And you can see this is a dam. I've got 50 images here in the folder. And just taking a look at some of these pictures, they're individual snapshots. So what we're going to do now is just sort of stitch all these together into a single ortho mosaic. And this is something you would do in the field to just verify that you're flying exactly what you need to collect. So I'm just going to choose a rapid project and create that. Give my project a name. Add a folder full of images, which is that folder I just showed you, and click OK. It's going to read all the images in, and you're going to see a resulting flight path of what the drone flew, and all the places that it took pictures. And simply for this one, I'm just going to press the Start button and just let it start cooking. We'll check in on the progress of this after Laurie. Laurie, back to you.
Okay, great. Thanks, John. All right, so we will get my slide back up on the screen here. There we go. And so the important thing to know is that all the modern drones, all the most popular drones that are on the market, come with existing flight planning software, how you plan out your project. Whether it's a 2D project shown here on the left, and the software that comes with the drone determines exactly where to take the pictures to make sure you have adequate overlap on the side and forward and backwards, so there's no gaps in coverage. And also tools to do 3D or oblique imagery, whether you want to do an orbit or you want to circle around a building or a bridge or a feature. So once the drone captures those images, you land it. The images go directly into Drone2Map. And with that process, Drone2Map basically processes all the imagery and creates a family of 4 standard information products. The first one here on the left is, I think, one of the most popular for GIS users, which is an orthomosaic. So it takes dozens or hundreds of images that you just flew and very quickly and gracefully stitches them all together into a very accurate mosaic, an orthomosaic that's like a carpet. It's a GIS map, an image map. You don't have to worry about doing all the complexities of photogrammetry. That's all done under the hood by the Drone2Map app. Second product there, the black and white one, is a digital surface model. You're all familiar with that. This is the elevation above ground or the ground surface of features, the rooftops, trees, and so forth. A very helpful product. The third one there, I think, is visually the most exciting and interesting. It's a point cloud and a mesh, and these are combined together to form a 3D scene. So what Drone2Map does is it creates point clouds, and then it colorizes those point clouds with the imagery itself. It drapes the imagery over the points. It gives you a very attractive looking 3D model. And then the fourth product on the far right, I think, is going to be most useful for the public safety and emergency management community, and this is what we call the inspection viewer. So these are oblique images. Let's say, for example, you wanted to orbit around a building of concern or a tower or a bridge or a facility, inspect to see if something collapsed or whether the road is washed out, and you're able to view these images, these oblique images, at full resolution and dynamically, and they're very precise because they have the GPS coordinates. So all these information products are automatically generated for you by Drone2Map. So then the next thing we want to do, of course, is share those products with our team, with our crew, with our organization, with our citizens or constituents. So Drone2Map actually takes the 2D products and pushes them out directly into your ArcGIS online organizational account as hosted tile layers. So these are those really nice, quick, what we sometimes call slippy maps that you can move around, and you get this beautiful, very quick, seamless orthomosaic image in 2D. And then for the 3D products, Drone2Map publishes these to your account as what we call a hosted scene layer. So now you have these really attractive 3D scenes that you can actually fly around and look at different angles. And that particular one there in this example is Rancho Cucamonga fire station. We had a very good visit with them recently with the chief of police and fire in the mayor's office. Flew the area and had a very good discussion with them and got some excellent input from them on some of their requirements as they carry out their public safety mission. So one of the most important parts of Drone2Map is that it's part of a larger platform, the ArcGIS platform, which we've worked hard here to position as a comprehensive system for working with all types of imagery. And I'm very happy to see that Drone2Map is highly interoperable by design from the beginning to work with this other family of apps. And we're getting a lot of interest in organizations and users wanting to use Drone2Map in combination with the Collector app, the Dashboard app, ArcGIS Earth app, and others. John's going to show us some really attractive examples of Drone2Map output in other areas. So lastly, what I'd like to do is kind of wrap up with a really interesting project we did recently. We had the opportunity to be invited over to Los Angeles to fly the historic Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. And this, of course, is where the 1932 Olympics and the 1984 Olympics were held. And we wanted to fly it with the drone and capture 2D and 3D data. And so there you see in the lower left corner, that's John Fetter with his drone. And there in the middle is our little drone. This is a 3DR Solo drone. We have these. We like them very much. They work quite well. It's important to point out that Drone2Map is not limited to one particular camera or drone. It actually supports a very long list of different models of cameras and drones, and it has very simple requirements. So the drone team here, led by Tony Mason with Diana Dittemore and a number of others, done a great job designing and messaging this out. So a very good solution there. The results that come out of this, to me, as an imagery person for a long time, are quite stunning. So if you take a look at this image here, the large image is actually the Coliseum inside, flown by the drone and Drone2Map. It's approximately half-inch resolution, maybe almost half centimeter, one centimeter rather resolution image. It's beautiful, and the little inset image there in the upper right is the oblique image. So the nadir image is taken by the new Sony camera soon to come out, already operable with Drone2Map, and the oblique image in the inset is taken with a little GoPro camera, which is still quite interesting and quite good. So getting beautiful results from this. Very excited to share these with you. And so with that, what I'd like to do at this point is turn it back over to John and see what we've been cooking in the oven. John?
Okay, thanks very much, Laurie. So while Laurie's been chatting, our rapid scan has finished, and this would be, say, something you would do in the field. So to make it easier to see, I'll just change the base map to a light gray canvas. So you can see that it has taken all of these individual photographs, which has taken nadir, and stitched them all together into an ortho mosaic. And this is a GoPro camera, and we're flying at around 300 feet. I can turn off the images and the flight path so you can see what we've got. But this can help me now verify that I've flown the area that I needed to fly and captured everything. And this is done in the field on a laptop and sort of real-time processing. And then when you come back to the office, you can run more of the high-resolution jobs. But it created the ortho mosaic, and it also created a hillshade for me as well, as it sort of gathered all the elevation information. So this was easy enough to do. I just added the images and pressed start, and off it went. So Laurie was mentioning some of the imagery we captured at the Coliseum. This is a web map, and we've just added our resulting imagery just straight into the ArcGIS cloud. You could also with Portal. But you can see here that we flew this, and I'll just tell you that on this day they were cutting the grass. And I can show you how they were cutting the grass right here by zooming into an area down here where we have a wheelbarrow and barrels full of grass clippings. So you can see the sort of the resolution that you can get pretty easily just by flying, launching that drone, flying the pattern, and then running it in Drone2Map and getting this very high resolution imagery. So you can imagine the use cases here for disaster response, special events, change detection, etc., as Jeff mentioned earlier. The other result here is in my second browser window, and again, this is it's just a browser, and this is a web scene. So we used the oblique imagery, which was done with the GoPro, and now what we've got is a three-dimensional view of the Coliseum. So I've now, just by flying the drone around there in, I think it was maybe 10 to 15 minute flight, I've now got a three-dimensional 3D mesh of the Coliseum. And I thought that was pretty darn cool, that I could get something as good as this very easily and quickly right out of the product. So let's actually show you how we created some of these and how Drone2Map works. So here in Drone2Map, you saw earlier when I just started a project, but I'll give you a quick tour of the product itself. So it's a standalone desktop product. This is a 64-bit app. It'll use as much resources as you're willing to give it on your machine. On the project tab here is where we create projects. So we've got the rapid that we ran earlier, which is a lower resolution. Then we've got the 2D mapping, 3D mapping, and an inspection. The current project that I'm in is an inspection. So you can see the flight path here around this local dam that I flew. If I go through the window, we've got a ribbon at the top. We've got some standard tools such as base maps, the Esri standard base maps, adding data, any offline content we need for work in the field, the inspection viewer, ground control points, some processing options. One of the really nice ones here is the processing report, and I'll show you that a little later as well, and some other options depending on the type of projects that you're running. On the left, we have a content screen. So this is showing the images, which is the blue dots here, and the flight path that the drone actually flew. And then we've got our inspection results. If I turn those off, we've got the results here where I can see all the points that the photo was taken, and you'll see a little arrow here where it's showing the direction that the camera was facing. And again, this was just a GoPro that I used on the drone this weekend. If I click on the inspection viewer, this works almost in a similar way to a map tour, if you're sort of familiar with the map tour, is that I can click on the image and it associates it with the point on the map. And I can click the point on the map and see the resultant image. But the idea behind the inspection here is if I'm sort of going through these products and I really need to see what's going on this, say in this case a dam, but this could be a damage assessment or sort of any other flight path, I can really zoom in to the dam, and I might be able to see some areas that need some further follow-up. So we've got an area here of discoloration that could potentially be a dam leak. So I can now take my polygon tool and mark that up. I could take a text tool and add some text right here and say, I need this for further inspection. And then I can simply export that photograph as something that needs to be followed up, and it keeps the markup on that picture for the inspection. So now you can just keep stepping through for different photographs and zoom in and actually do your inspection safely from your desk rather than having to be hanging over the side of a dam. So the inspection workflow is one that I think is going to be very useful. Consider this for a damage assessment workflow where your drone has flown down a street and captured all the imagery there, and now you can use this tool to mark up homes that might need additional follow-up, or even homes that you can see have been destroyed or properties destroyed. So let's take a look at some of the other tools in here. I'm going to open an existing project. Just browse to my project list. So that was the inspection that I just showed there. Next, let's move on to the survey, and we'll open a survey. So the survey is flown with the camera facing straight down, or nadir. And this is the same sort of project that we did earlier in the rapid scan. Just the difference here is that this project was the full process. So I'm just going to choose the light gray just so it makes it easier to stand out and you can see what happened. But say Drone2Map stitched together all of these individual images to create this really nice ortho mosaic. And again, we can zoom into a pretty good level of detail. We were flying fairly high at this dam. There's a lot of cables and other obstructions that we didn't want our drone to collide with. So we can simply sort of push them and see the result here, and then we can also see the processing report that is generated. So the processing report gives you a tremendous amount of information about what data that you had and how it was actually brought together, stitched together. So it's giving you your average ground sampling distance. In this case, it's just about 3 inches. It'll give you the initial processing time. We can also produce NDVI out of here as well, as long as your camera is capturing that. And then it walks through the calibration. So if you're creating product and you need to actually understand what was going on, what the results are, what could make it better, this is the report to do that. And it goes into a tremendous amount of detail. You can see it, and the software automatically knows what kind of a camera I was using, all the numbers of images, the matches, and all the details. So it's a very good report that is produced every time you run a project. And this is it's a PDF, so you can easily use that. So now I've connected this and I've captured it. I now need to share it with people. So sharing is pretty simple. We just click the tile layer button, and now I'm signed into my ArcGIS Online organization. I'm going to publish my product. I just give it a name, choose who I want to share it with, and it's a standard process, like sort of any of our tools for sharing any of the data. Just goes straight in and straight online. It processes, builds the tile cache for you, and you're done. And you just add that straight to a web map, and you have that product. So in addition, just to the ortho, say it does produce a digital surface as well, and a shade, and those are stored locally on the machine. So I can bring that directly into ArcMap. So in ArcMap, I can now click on any point here, and I can see the values, the pixel value for any of the points in here. So this can now be used in any of our geoprocessing tools. There's sort of standard image and raster geoprocessing tools in either ArcMap or Pro, of course. So that was the DSM, and then we've also got a Hillshade as well, which was built on the fly. This particular camera, the GoPro, doesn't have the spectrum for us to create the NDVI project, but if you're flying a different sensor, you can absolutely do that. So we'll go back to the Drone2Map software. Let's take a look at another project. So another project that we've got going on here is the scan, and the scan is oblique imagery. So imagery flown, not straight down, but at an angle. So if we take a look at this one, this is going to be a 3D view. And what you're seeing on the screen here, again, I'm going to keep that base map as gray, is you can actually see the flight path, which are the dots. I've got a red outline here, which is a clipping tool. So there's a clipping tool right in here where I can draw a clip to it and clip the processing area. That's especially useful for sort of limiting the process time for other areas of imagery that you might have captured out of your area of interest. So this was simply adding those photographs and into a project, but the type being 3D. And then if I go into my 3D view, you can now see that I've got a 3D model created right in here of that dam. And again, this was just created by flying, just simply flying the dam at an oblique angle with a GoPro camera, and I've now got a model. If I add the background in here back to imagery, and I'll turn off some of these projects to unclutter the screen, you can see that I've now got a product which is three-dimensional view, and it's layered in the standard Esri imagery on the back end. If I want to share this, I can share this as a scene layer. I just click the scene layer button, and again it says the textured mesh, which I give a name, and I just simply share it straight up to my ArcGIS Online organization. From there I can be included in any scene product. Take a look at see, we've got another project here. Actually, let me go back to this one. I apologize. What I wanted to show you here was that the results of these are not just results which are accessible online and for publication, but you can actually use these results locally as well. So if I look at the scan project, I've got products, and in this case they're going to be 3D products. And in here I've got the mesh, and I've actually got a scene package as well. And the scene package can be used in other Esri products such as Earth. So ArcGIS Earth, we can just add that directly into that. If I go back to the 2D project here, say we'll go back to the survey and products and 2D, you can see that I've got an orthomosaic in here, the hillshade, and those can now just be pulled directly into ArcMap or Pro locally, and you can run all of this offline and produce paper maps of these just as you can publish them as well and produce those online projects. So if I just open up Earth, and I'll take that scene package and simply drag and drop it on Earth, Earth will consume that package and give me an immediate rendering of that. And again, that's the 3D, and this is now in Earth. This was a pretty simple flight to do. We just sent the drone up. It was probably a 8 to 10 minute flight. Completed this project. We downloaded the images and just brought them straight into here. Next, let's just take a look at the LA Coliseum. So this was the project that Laurie showed you earlier, and some interesting things we did here. You can see we flew a lot of patterns around the Coliseum. There's some pretty detailed architecture. You've got the iconic arches at this end of the stadium, and so we wanted to make sure that we really captured that. But also, because the stadium is above ground, it was best for us to actually take some ground control points and to optimize the imagery. So if I click on the ground control points, you can see that we brought ground control points in. So we had our collector team on site, and they were using the new capabilities of the collector app, which is the high definition GPS. So they were capturing sub-foot measurements. I think there was down to about 8-inch measurements on ground control points. The ground control points here are shown as the red X's on the screen. And again, these were used as a correction for the images, and it's just like georeferencing, and we brought those in for the process. Some processing options that you have when you're running these are available, and the processing options, of course, will depend if you're running a 2D project or a 3D project. But you can go in here and actually have a little bit more control. I found that the defaults are actually very good, and I haven't really needed to change many of these options. Some of the ones that I will change are if I'm processing an orthomosaic and I actually don't need the digital surface model. That's something you can check or uncheck. That just saves you processing time more than anything. But you can definitely go in here and adjust what you need, how many CPU threads you're going to use. So this is on my laptop, so it'll use everything that I can throw at it right here. But if you need to limit that so that you can work on other things on your laptop, because this product will suck up 100% of your processing if you allow it to have that many. So the resulting product here, again, is that 3D view. I always find it interesting to turn these on their side a little bit and actually see and understand where the drone flew. So now you've got the flight paths actually shown with elevation as we went through the stadium here to fly this. So we have the Rams. The Rams are going to be starting here, and so pretty soon they're going to have their first pregame. And we're going to be using some of this in collaboration with the folks there managing there for actually managing the emergency management around the stadium. And we can use the orthomosaic as a base map, and we can use the 3D scenes here as well to identify where incidents are happening in 3 dimensions rather than just on the flat map. But this was it was a fun project to be part of, and really interesting here. So I think that is sort of a good overview of Drone2Map. I'm not sort of getting into a how-to on each of the pieces, but you saw earlier when I just ran the rapid scan, it's really just as simple as creating a new project of the type that you want to. Once you've created that, you add the images. Once you've added the images, you simply press the start button, and Drone2Map will take care of all the heavy lifting for you. You then just publish either your scene or your layer straight into your online organization, and you have products that are very easily available. So the idea again is fly the drone to capture the imagery, process it in the Drone2Map, and now use and share that data, whether you're using it locally in a desktop product or you're publishing out into the web environment. Jeff, I think it's back to you.
Great, thanks, John. Before we let you off the hook, maybe if you can help us follow up with some of the drone best practices that you've learned over the years.
Yeah, absolutely, Jeff. Yes, thank you. The number one thing with the drones right now is to follow the rules. If you're not aware of this website, knowbeforeyouFly.org, it's somewhere you really need to go and visit. We've all seen reports in the news of air operations being grounded for wildfires because somebody has put an unauthorized drone up into the area. And it really is, if if you fly, they can't, and you could potentially be impacting loss of life and property because you put a drone up into the air unauthorized. So please know before you fly, be a good citizen, and any of this negative press that's getting into the, getting out about drones is impacting everyone that's doing good work with drones. So as the bottom bullet point says, just read that one and please take advice of that. Thanks, Jeff.
And John, there's probably some common questions that folks have, and before we kind of get to our normal business, can you kind of talk us through some of these, common questions that folks will likely have?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been monitoring the questions coming in online, and obviously the top one there is, how do I get it? So you can download Drone2Map from that URL right there. There's even a 60-day trial, so you can just download Drone2Map for 60 days. Go ahead and use it and start getting some great results. So as I mentioned earlier, it's a desktop app. It runs on Windows, and it'll just turn your still raw imagery straight into your information products that you need. Do I need to supply the drone? Yes, you have to supply your own drone. We are drone agnostic. There's some minimum requirements that must be captured on the images in order to make them useful in Drone2Map. There has to be an X, a Y, and a Z value minimum to be able to pull the products in there. But say I've used the 3DR Solo and really enjoy flying that. I find it easy to fly. But anything that tags the EXIF data onto the imagery is what you need. How much is it? Well, there you go. It's $3,500 in the U.S. And so if you need help, we can put you in contact with an account manager or follow up with you otherwise to help you with that. But again, there's a 60-day trial, so go ahead and download it. And if you're outside of the U.S., you're joining us from outside of the U.S., you'll need to contact your local distributor for pricing. Does it work offline? Absolutely. That is the workflow I was using this weekend. The Solo that I was using is transmitting the images straight to my tablet. I can then pop the chip right into my laptop and run it offline. I can then look at that rapid scan offline, or if I need to create more detailed products, I can do that offline as well. When I get back to a place with good internet connectivity, I can then upload those and share them. So yes, it does work offline. I think those are some of the most common questions we're getting asked on the Drone2Map, but there's a lot of others questions coming in, and we'll try and get to some of those shortly.
Great, thanks, John. Yeah, thanks, John and Lori, for your great presentation this morning. And just a couple of other, normal standing items of business. I wanted to provide a quick update on ArcGIS for emergency management and the solution templates that are available. This past month, there was an update to the attribute assistant, and so the flood planning template has been updated to reflect that most recent release. Also, some of you may have noted that there's been some additional videos that have been added for some of the existing solution templates, especially in the situational awareness bundle. So there's videos now for the operations response and logistics planning templates, and more videos will be coming, shortly. So keep an eye out for some of these updates from the ArcGIS for emergency management side. But there's been a lot of activity, unfortunately, from the disaster response perspective over the past, month. So Wisconsin has been doing great work in responding to the floods there, and so we've added a lot of their examples to our examples group that we'll share with you after the webcast. So story map tours are a common operational picture product that was shared with the public. There's several examples that have been put inside there of the great flooding that happened in northern Wisconsin over this past month. Several fire examples, a Cold Springs fire outside of Nederland, Colorado, and several map products that have been put together there and have been added to our examples group, along with the public information map type of example in a story map of the lava mountain fire. So those are all kind of recent examples that have been added to our examples group. So please check those out and keep those examples in mind. And if you've got examples to contribute, please let us know. Also, as a kind of a public service announcement, we've been sharing these on most of our webcasts. Many of you have been using our services, our live feed services from tmservices.esri.com. Make sure you get those repointed to the new source. Those have been all been migrated over to ArcGIS Online, and so there should be it's all the same type of data. Just make sure you get that pointed to the new source before the end of the year. So that basically concludes the main content that we wanted to present today. We encourage you to explore the resources presented in today's webinar. We'll be sending you an email shortly thereafter with some of the links that we've talked about and some follow-up materials for you to take a look at. As a reminder, our next webinar will be on Thursday, September 1st at 9 a.m. Pacific, getting started with the WebEOC ArcGIS extension. Please send us your suggestions or ideas. John and my's email is right here, and we welcome your input and feedback on this webinar series, and we want to keep this relevant and up to date for you. Also, we're on Twitter, and there's our handles there, and it's not too early to start thinking about the user conference next year, both not only the National Security Summit, National Security and Public Safety Summit, but also the user conference. So with that, I think I see a lot of questions have been coming in over the chat, and we appreciate all that have been put in here. For the ones that we don't get answers to, we'll follow up with you on email and try and get those answers back out to you. But now we'll open up to both John and Lori and start to answer some of these questions that are coming in. So John, one of the main questions I've seen is maybe can you kind of talk us through to think about how LiDAR is different or the same as a part of this? Just maybe kind of clear up any confusion that folks may have on LiDAR and how that kind of fits into this or not. I know there's a lot of similar information products are generated, but can you talk us through that aspect and maybe any other kind of questions that you see as reoccurring themes here?
Yeah, absolutely, I will do. I'm just going to jump into a couple, and I'll get to the LiDAR as well. Does it work with ArcGIS and Portal? Yes, it does. You can work with either of. I'm getting questions about the GoPro camera that we used here to capture these, and do we need to modify it? No, there was no modifications done to the camera whatsoever. There's a few recommended settings to put into the GoPro just to capture some of the sort of best imagery, but you don't need to do anything to modify the camera to remove the fisheye distortion or any of that. Can you import ground control points as a shapefile? Right now, ground control points are coming in as a CSV. It's just a very common, easy format there. So just bring those ground control points in the CSV. In 1.1, which is going to be coming, there will be new ways and methods of bringing in ground control points. I've got a couple others here about the drones. So again, we are sort of drone agnostic. It doesn't matter what model you go out and fly. But the questions here again are coming in about spacing and the collection. So I've been using the 3DR Solo, and I've got an app from there as well, which is called SiteScan, and SiteScan helps me plan and execute the surveys or the oblique scans, and I just simply draw on the screen with my finger, and it creates the flight pattern for me, goes off and flies it, and the drone comes back with the information that I need. You see, the LiDAR. So LiDAR, Drone2Map currently is not processing LiDAR. What you get out of this is you've got oblique images that are stitched together and processed to create a 3D mesh. So it's not a fly-through LiDAR cloud at all. It's a 3D mesh. It's a slightly different product. So it isn't exactly LiDAR. Jeff, you see any other common ones in there?
Let's see. Maybe can you talk about what's the equipment that you guys use when you went to the stadium? What was the exact kind of list of equipment that you guys used? Maybe just cover that.
Yeah, so again, it was the same. It was the same drone model. You saw the picture of me with a backpack. So in that backpack was the 3DR Solo. I had a bunch of batteries with us. Each battery on that particular drone lasts sort of 20 minutes. We had a high-resolution camera from Sony called the R10C, which is a 20 megapixel camera, and we used that for capturing the NADA imagery. And that's a real high resolution, and we use that for all the survey flights. Everything, the tablet that we happened to be using was a Sony Android tablet. Then we changed out that camera for the GoPro, and there's a gimbal that comes with that sits underneath the drone to keep the camera stable and actually control the angle of the oblique imagery. And so it was just a lot of flights. We did several flights to make sure we got some good coverage in there, but that was out of the box. Then I had my laptop with me, and we would process that information as it came back on my laptop to assure that we had the coverage that we had desired. And there was exactly the same hardware and software that I used for the dam as well.
Great, thanks. Maybe you want to talk about any other drones that you've seen or heard of that have been useful or used with this technology. Obviously, we talk about we're agnostic, but have you seen other good examples of other types of equipment that have been used with the software?
Yes, folks can use. So I'm only familiar with a couple of drones really, and say I'm sort of the one that I own is the one that I fly. So that's the one that I've been using. But the DJIs are other drones out there which work well. The Phantom series of DJIs are very popular. And again, as long as the images are being stamped with a minimum of X, Y, and Z, and they can be used in the Drone2Map software. Obviously, the more information that gets saved on each image, the more you can do with it. Downstream, but that's just another drone that I've heard is very popular, the DJI Phantoms.
Yeah, and others from SenseFly and others like that. So that's
right.
Great.
Yeah.
And so yeah, and any other common questions or trends that you want to, or any other advice, John, that you want to leave folks with before we close out today's session?
Yeah, my advice is, again, back to being a good citizen. If you're going to put a drone in the air, make sure that you can do it legally. Make sure that you're following the rules, and don't be that person that shuts down a firefighting operation because you wanted to film a fire line. It's just not worth it. But then if you look at some of the workflows that can come out of easily putting a drone in the air and capturing some data very quickly, bringing that back and processing it, I think for emergency management, disaster response, even special events. So if you put a drone up over a special event area, a marathon or some sort of arena event, and you wanted to capture the locations of all the vendors and other information and use that as your base map now, you've now got a base map that is a couple of hours old rather than a base map that could potentially be years out of date. Mm-hmm. So the Drone2Map software here, just the simplicity of use, add your pictures, press the start button, publish your results, is making it, in my mind, a very powerful addition to the ArcGIS sort of platform to be able to take that imagery and have recent, up-to-date images.
Great.
I think that's my final thoughts on those, Jeff. If you have any others, I think the use cases are endless once you start thinking about it.
For sure. Lori, any other comments from you before we close?
Just quickly, I think John covered all the key ones. As you would expect here at Esri, we have continuous innovation, and so Tony and his drone team are working very aggressively for even a new release coming out at the end of this year. And so I would encourage everyone to download the current release, the trial version, and get a feel for it. Let us know what you think and what you'd like to see. Some of the things that are coming in the future will be support for video. As you know, drones all have video cameras as well typically. little GoPro does a beautiful job with video, and the drone team is making great progress working on integrating simple, non-MISB format data into our technology platform, as well as precision mensuration. I want to measure something very accurately from the imagery, and so a lot of good things are under development, underway here. So the best thing that would help us would be for you as a community and a group of users to take a test drive on what we have today. Let us know what you're interested in seeing, what you need to be successful, and we'll work that into our game plan, and it will absolutely influence our development. So that's it.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you, Lori and John, for your great, presentations today. Obviously, a lot of, exciting potential applications for the emergency management disaster response market. The ability to get this type of information, much more quickly and much more cost efficiently collected than has been available before is really exciting. And looking forward to seeing this, in operational use by many of you. So thank you, everyone, for joining today, and we look forward to speaking to you again next month. Take care.